Hello, River of Life Community Fellowship. It is time once again for another midweek check-in. So we're going through this series called Gods at War, and we're talking about the idols in our lives and these false gods that we put in the place of God or asked to share glory with God, and how they're warring for control of our heart. And this last week we talked about the gods of pleasure. And just these things that like we get enjoyment out of and pleasure out of that we just give our lives to. And because we give our lives to them, they really begin to take a place of authority in our lives, and we begin to give our devotion to them, and they become an idol. And if you haven't heard the message or any of the message in the series, I'll put a link in the description. You can go to check that out. I highly recommend it. It is a very good series. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today is what do we do when, like, we go through this process, we identify an idol in our lives? How do we deal with it practically? How do we practically deal with the idols that show up in our lives? And so, I think as an illustration, there's a story I want to share kind of from my own life, something that I experienced in my own life. And this thing that I was dealing with wasn't really an idol, but I think what I learned in dealing with it was basically the same things that I see as how we deal with idols. And so when I was in college, I was a medical technology major, which meant that I was learning how to work in a clinical laboratory setting, a hospital lab or doctor's office lab, and learning how to do that. The last year of the program, the last year of the degree program, in order to get my degree, was a 50-week internship, which included, like, I had to be at a hospital. And in the mornings, my classmates and I would be in the lab doing the work. And we'd have people looking over our shoulders, make sure we weren't messing up, but we were learning how to do the work of the lab. And then in the afternoons, we would have classes and lectures and tests and things like that to give us the knowledge we needed to understand what we were doing in the lab. And it was a good program, and I really enjoyed it. But one of the things I noticed is that, like, I went to school at the University of South Dakota in Vermilion, and Vermilion's a small town. Without the college, it was at that time was roughly 3,000 people, about 7,000 college students, so 10,000 people total. So even with the college, it was a small town. But they didn't have the internship program at the hospital there. I had to go someplace else, so I went to Sioux City, Iowa, and up until that point, I'd either lived in the dorms or I'd lived with my parents. Like, that was all I knew. But I had to get my own apartment then. So I had my own apartment, and, going through making sure I have everything I need. I got cable and internet because those are essentials. And, one of the things I noticed, like, fairly early on, a couple months into the program, is that my grades weren't as good as they should be. And they were by no means failing, but they weren't as good as they should be. And so, like, I just kind of stepped back and was, okay, why are my grades not where they should be? And I realized it was because of my television. I just kind of looked at my day, and I would get up in the morning and I would turn on the television, get the news and weather, kind of figure out what's going on in the day and those kind of things. So I'd turn on the television and get ready for my internship, and then turn off the TV and go. And then I'd come back at, 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And first thing I'd do is turn the TV on. And then the TV would be on until I went to bed. It was on when I was cooking supper. It was on when I was studying. It was just always on. And I realized that I was just spending a lot of time, even when I was studying, I was spending a lot of time kind of looking at the book, looking at the TV, looking at the book, looking at the TV. And so it was a very distracted studying. And I was like, so that's probably why my grades aren't that good. And not only that, I was also like even my relationship with God wasn't that good because, well, I wasn't spending time with God unless the TV was on. And it was just this distraction to everything I was doing. And so, and I think, and so I was looking at this like, okay, what do I do about this? And I just said, well, if I just need to get rid of the temptation. And so I canceled my cable. And I didn't really have an antenna on my TV. Not a good one. I lived in a brick building that didn't get very good signal. I was in the middle of the building, didn't get very good TV signal in there. And so, um, like it just kind of cut down the availability of television for me. And so, and I think that's like the first thing when it comes to dealing with idols in our lives, when we identify them. Um, the first thing we need to understand is that we need to deal with them. We need to get rid of them. As Joshua says in his speech in Joshua 24, put them away. Or as the Hebrew says, to turn off, as in like you're going down the road and you turn off. And that's what we do. We're going towards this thing, this distraction, this idol, and we turn off that path. We say, we go the other way. We're done with it. That's it. There's just no more of it. And so that's the first thing we need to do when we're dealing with these idols, when we've identified them. We're like, okay, first thing is we get rid of it. We put it away. We move it away. We make it so that it's hard for it to even be a temptation to give ourselves to, right? And so that's the first thing we got to do. But that also leaves us with an issue. And I think anyone who's dealt with any sort of addiction, ministry, or any dealt with addiction in their own lives or helping other people deal with it, all understand this simple principle is that when you take something that's a part of your life and you take it out of your life, it leaves a hole. Like there's this spot in our life now that is empty, that it used to be filled with something and we took that thing away, that there's space in our lives for something to fill it in. And, Jesus even kind of hit on this a little bit. He was talking about demon possession. He said, demons get cast out and they go into the wasteland or go wander looking for a place to rest, and they don't find it. And they say to themselves, I'm just going to go back to where I was. And that's in like Luke 11 or, Luke 11. And they go back. So they go back to where they were and they find this home that is clean and put in order and just empty, ready for them. And so it's the same thing when we're dealing with these things in our life, these idols in our lives. When we get rid of them, like we've had our time and our attention and our devotion focused on these things. When we get rid of it, there's room for our time and attention and focus to be on something. And if we don't take and fill that spot, either that idol is going to come back in and fill that spot, or it's going to be filled with some other junk. And so that was one thing I noticed right away is like when I got rid of my cable TV, I was able to like focus more on my study. My grades improved dramatically. My quiet times improved dramatically because I wasn't dealing with this distraction while I was trying to do these things. And even like time with friends and things like that improved because like then I was looking for something to do. So I would, do the study and go hang out with friends, and it worked well. It worked really well. But then I did notice a few months later that, I got rid of my cable, but I kept my internet because I needed it for studying and things like that. There's also this website called YouTube. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. That I started spending a lot of time on and other like websites that would pique my interest and things. And so like what I kind of also found is that I didn't always fill it with the best things. This time that was now in my life, I didn't always fill it with the best things. And so the second part of what we need to understand is that when we get rid of this idol in our lives, there's a hole there that needs to be filled. And if we're not intentionally putting things into that hole, it's going to be filled with junk. And so those are probably the two most important things in dealing with idols, is that, one, we got to get rid of it. We got to turn away from it. We got to put it away. And then two, we have to fill the space that it leaves, and we have to be intentional about what we fill that with. And so like if we're looking and we kind of find, okay, so I have this idol of pleasure, like I really enjoy playing video games or something like that's where I go to for comfort. That's where I go to for stress relief. That's this thing in my life that is an idol, and okay, I need to get rid of it. So we get rid of it, and we do something like we go on a fast 40 days of not doing it or something like that. We get rid of it. but then it leaves this hole in our lives. We need to fill it with something else. So that rather than just, whatever, like we take that time that we would spend playing video games and we read books about our faith or something like that, or we spend time in prayer, or we join a small group or something. Like, we fill that time with something else, and we need to be intentional about it, because if we're not intentional about it, either whatever we got rid of is just going to come back, or that hole is going to be filled with a bunch of junk that isn't going to be helpful for us, or something else that might become an idol. And so that's what we need to do. So that's my encouragement to you today. Get rid of the idols in your lives and fill those voids with something good, and be intentional about it. That's my encouragement for you today. I hope and pray that you're able to connect with God this week, and that God is able to speak to your heart and really begin to show you some of these things in your lives that are either idols or in danger of becoming idols. And that through that, you're able to experience peace and release from these things, and fill the void with some good things that draw you closer to God. That's my encouragement. I hope that God blesses you abundantly this week. Thanks, and God bless.